Shalom to everyone. We're in Parashat Vayakhel this week. Today we're going to learn a contemplation based on the first Torah in Mea Shilach, in the Ishbitz's book. And it's a very fundamental concept in Chasidut. So first we'll say the general idea that comes out of this. Again, he, as usual, so he teaches it, connects it somehow to the Parsha. And the connection is to what the Torah mentions, the commandment of keeping Shabbos in context of the Mishkan. In the beginning of our parasha is the building of the tabernacle. And simultaneously, while we're commanded to build the tabernacle, we're also simultaneously commanded to not build the tabernacle, not take part in these works on the Sabbath, on the day of Shabbat. And a lot of the halachot of Shabbat are learned from this intertwined connection between the building of the tabernacle. So actually all of what we're forbidden to do on Shabbos are all of those specific melachot, those specific works that were done in the tabernacle, because that's how it's commanded, that we're not allowed, this is the work that we need to stop from doing. So those are like the archetype works from which we cease to comply in on Shabbat. Now, this connection, he contemplates on how it's mentioned. Now, the idea that's going to be discussed, so we're just going to say it first, and then we'll try to contemplate on it in our minds, is that he describes L'Shem Shamayim, the phrase L'Shem Shamayim, a very important phrase in Yiddishkeit. Everything we do, we want to have it L'Shem Shamayim. So the simple words, like if I just transliterate L'Shem Shamayim, it means to do in the name of God. Now, what it usually implies is that a person has all sorts of motivations in life, why he does things. Like if I do a mitzvah, I do a good deed in life. Let's say I see a poor person in the street and I give him some tzedakah. So I could have all sorts of motivations. And generally, I'm either doing it for myself. Like let's say I have personal interest, or I want pride, I want people to notice me, I want to feel self-satisfied, or all sorts of things. Or I'm motivated by Hashem, I'm doing it because Hashem commanded. So again, on a very simple denomination here, either I'm doing it L'Shem Shamayim, in the name of Hashem, I'm doing it because of Hashem, or I'm doing it because of other reasons, myself or other such personal interests. But obviously it's much better, and so like a very important thing in the thought of Yiddishkeit, any book you read in Musar and Chasidut, that everything you should do should be L'Shem Shamayim. You should do it because HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded, because it's what Hashem cares about, not just because of your personal interest. Even if it's something that makes sense, like we could have in our human simple logic in many societies that you shouldn't steal and you shouldn't murder and all sorts of very basic fundamental things, but still we do it L'Shem Shamayim. We do it not only because it makes sense to us, because it's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded. And inevitably, also if it doesn't make sense under certain circumstances, still we have to comply with what the Torah commands, with what Hashem wants from us. And also when it does make sense, so we should be feeling that what we're doing is not only because of our sense, we're not serving ourselves or our personal logic, we're serving a godly commandment. So this is a very simple, a very basic concept in Torah, that everything should be done, Kol ma'asecha yu L'Shem Shamayim. Everything you do, Chazal say, should be done in the name of Hashem, in Hashem's name. Now, what he wants to explain here, and again, this is a very elaborate concept that we could go on and on about, we'll just say it in a nutshell, is that surprisingly enough, anything you do L'Shem Shamayim is easy. And that's a surprising enough concept. There's even a very famous mashal from the Magid Midobna, if anyone's heard of him. He was actually a friend or a chavrusa, a student of the Gaon Vilna, the famous Vilna Gaon. And he was a very famous storyteller. He had all sorts of stories, mashalim, that he'd say, allegories, to allegorize ideas in Chasidut. Very intricate allegories, but some of them were even accepted amongst the Hasidim. Obviously, he wasn't a big Hasid. He was more of the other side, of the Litvish side. Again, he was a chavus of the Gaon Vilna, but again, his stories are very elaborate. So if anyone's learned here in Beis Yaakov or in more of those areas, then I'm sure you've heard a lot about him. But also in Hasidic thought, so there's even a Masoros about 3 of his mashalim. So one of them, a very famous mashal that he said, we'll say it briefly, is that a person, when a person comes to a hotel, and he gives the bellboy his suitcases and briefcases, and he tells him, I'm in room 401, 4th floor. And that's it. He goes up to his room. He waits for the bellboy to bring up his suitcases. Now this gentleman, he's waiting and waiting. He's getting irritated, looking down the hall. Where's the bellboy? Where's my luggage? And at some point he's losing it. And then he sees the bellboy dragging his briefcases, sweating and huffing and puffing and coming down the hall. And he turns to me, he says, "What took you so long?" He says, "I've been waiting here for 2 hours for my luggage." So the bellboy tells him, "Wow, what do you want? This luggage weighs hundreds of kilos. How very heavy luggage you have." So the gentleman tells him that, no, if it's so heavy, it's not my luggage, because my luggage isn't heavy. And he says this allegory about Torah and mitzvot. He reads it into a verse in the Navi that we read in the Haftarah. That lo biyagata Israel, that if he reads it, if you're working hard, then it's not my work. The Kodesh Baruch Hu tells Am Yisrael that if you feel that you're exasperated and you're making effort, you're sweating, you're huffing and puffing, so you're carrying the wrong bag, the wrong luggage. My baggage, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, it's not heavy, it's comfortable luggage. Now this is this allegory by the Magid Miduvna is broadly accepted amongst Hasidim. Now, seemingly, it's very perplexing, because you'd think that Avodat Hashem, the service of Hashem, is something that you should need to work at. It's the service of Hashem. Service is work. The word for Avodah, for service, means hard work. So there's probably different types of hard work. But this is the same concept he's describing here. So I'm just stating that right now, and then we'll contemplate on how he describes it. It's not so complicated when you think about it. But it's like a simple fundamental characteristic, and this every one of us could imply this in his life, that serving Hashem correctly, like l'shem shamayim, if what I'm doing, no matter how much I'm doing it, I'm giving a lot of classes, or I'm running a moisad, or whatever anybody's doing, you have your shlichus, your family, your wife, your kids, your chores, everybody has his efforts in life, his shlichut, his calling, his position in the world where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's put him. So if what he's doing, and this is maybe the most important calling of all of our faith, is wherever we are, in every position, kol ma'asecha l'shem shamayim, whatever it is that we need to do, that the circumstances that HaKadosh Baruch was orchestrated for us are calling us to do, everything we do, we need to do in His name. And the cue, or the sign that you're doing something in Hashem's name, is, again, as wondrous, as surprising as this might seem, is that it should be effortless. So there's an effortlessness in L'Shem Shamayim. Now, how is this intertwined with Shabbos? Because that's the point. We haven't explained how this works yet. Because that's the point, so the Ishbitzer says that that's the Shabbos, the point of Shabbos within every point of creation. It's a known thing that Shabbat is the centerpiece of all of creation. It's the seventh point, like if you have a cube, so the six sides are what constitute the space, and what conjured within the center is the Shabbos, the seventh. So there are a lot of, as known to some of us, there are a lot of geometrical phenomena around this, other than a cube, or if you take three identical circles like coins, you can always organize 6 coins precisely around the center coin, same size, diameter circle. And the center of reality, many phenomena around this also, in different ideas and contemplations, Chasidut. That's the Shabbat. So the Shabbat is the center, like the Pnimiyut, the internal side of dimension of everything in reality. Now, what is that internal dimension? It's the motivation driving creation in the name of Hashem. So if when I'm serving Hashem, whatever it is that I'm doing, so if I'm connected to that internal point, so for me it's Shabbat. And if it's Shabbat, what do we do on Shabbat? Shabbat Menucha. So there's resting. And this is a very fundamental point. It's serving Hashem correctly, serving Hashem in the name of Hashem, l'shem shamayim, is effortless. It's a form of rest. Now, obviously, already we can see that it's a special type of rest, because it's not static. Because we're implying that we're serving Hashem, and someone's doing a lot. Like there's a lot of actions being done, and there's a lot of outcome. But nonetheless, it's being done in an effortless manner. So there's a true, deep, profound tranquility within the effort, which makes it effortless. So much so that even if a person is to take a vacation, or to rest, like to try to be static, it could very well be, like we all know today, it's not so simple to halt your life. Like you might be working day in, day out, just so you can have a vacation. When you get that vacation, you're sitting on the white sands of Thailand and drinking a pina colada, whatever it is, after 10, 20 minutes, you start, being agitated, opening your laptop to go back to work, because it's not so simple to rest. And here what we're implying is a true rest. Not only is it not something that necessarily results in halting your actions, but you could even do it simultaneously. So stopping everything you're doing isn't going to help. And if you know how to rest correctly, then you can do it whilst you're working. So even one of the nicknames for a tzaddik, for a righteous man, is Shabbat. So a tzaddik is called Shabbat again because of this point that his efforts are effortless efforts. Now what's the idea? Simple idea that if what's driving me, again, effort is like motivation, like inertia. What's moving me along in life? So if I'm moving myself, then I'm putting an effort into what I'm doing. So it's like riding a bike. If I need to make the effort, I'm on the treadmill and I'm like that expression in the world, a rat race. What's the idea about a rat race? So it's like a rat in one of those circles that if you're making your life go round, if I need to ignite my own motivations, then I'm constantly feeling an effort. I'm feeling friction, and there's a lot of energy needs to be put into it. A lot of fuel needs to be consumed. But if I'm being driven, so if there's some external motivation driving me, that's the literal meaning of L'Shem Shamayim. The literal meaning of L'Shem Shamayim is that I'm sensitive to what Hashem wants, as if Hashem is making an effort. Hashem cares about something. He's driving it, and His drive, His motivation, is driving me. Like to say that maybe as an example, you walk into a wedding or into a situation where there's a lot of life happening, and it carries you away. You don't need to get up and dance. Like if you're home alone, I tell you now it's Adar. We're in the months of Adar, and now's a time that we need to be very happy. So sometimes there's a lot of effort in being happy. If you come home and you want to get your kids to dance, and nobody's dancing, so you have to put a lot of effort into it because you're the rat in the rat race. You're the one who needs to get the treadmill moving. But if you walk into a wedding and there's a band and there's a big simcha and everybody's dancing, so you find yourself swept away. There's no effort in it. It's effortless. Again, you're dancing, your muscles are moving, but experientially it's effortless because someone else is putting an effort into it. Maybe the band, the guy who runs the band, or the people dancing. You're being carried away in something like a chassid who comes to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe is giving a farbrengen, and he's putting himself into it so much that you feel yourself being carried away, and then the Rebbe looks at you and does like this, and it hops you in the air. You don't need to jump; it just gets you up. So when the effort isn't coming from you, the motivation is coming from outside of yourself, then it feels effortless. Even though there could be, you're swept away. Like there's a lot of movement happening, a lot of action is going on, but you're not driving it. Now this is the simple meaning of L'Shem Shamayim. L'Shem Shamayim means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares. I don't care. I'm not doing it because of me. I'm doing it because He cares, and His caring drives me. So if I'm sensitive to HaKadosh Baruch Hu caring about something, and that moves me, that drives me, then the most experiential cue to that I can notice that is that I'll find myself moving effortlessly. It's like being carried away in a river. If you're in a stream and the stream is just flowing, so you don't need to do anything and you're moving along. So if you're not in a stream or you want to go upstream, then you have to paddle and you're going to be sweating and huffing and puffing. But if you're going with the stream, so it's effortless. So the more your avodah, your service of Hashem, is L'Shem Shamayim. Like I feel that what I'm doing now is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. And I'm doing it because it's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. His will is what's motivating me to do it, then the more effortless it feels. So again, this is a very paradoxical phenomena that the more I'm focused on Hashem's will, the more I care and I'm sensitive to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, the less effort I feel, even though it's far from being static. Obviously, this point needs to be stressed, that it doesn't mean that I'm not doing anything. I'm doing a lot, but I don't feel like I'm doing much. This is also the reason that that a tzaddik, and he does a lot of mitzvahs, but he really doesn't feel any credit for it, because it's not just that he's being modest. He experientially doesn't really feel he's putting any effort into it. It's just like if someone's clapping hands because my canoe is going so quickly, but I'm not doing it. It's just the river is taking me along. So from the side, it might look like I'm a very, very experienced and expert rower, but I'm not even rowing. So I actually experientially feel that I'm not doing anything. It's not just me being modest. That's my experience. So the more my service of Hashem is L'Shem Shamayim, and this is something that goes down to those practical layers of life. I'm doing the dishes, or I'm going to work, or the more HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really a consideration that's involved in motivating me and driving me in life, the more effortless it's experienced, even though I'm doing a lot. So the more I focus on Hashem, the more I think about this, I contemplate on what Hashem wants of me. First of all, maybe I'm not in the right river if I think about that. But if I consider this, it very well might be that the circumstances won't change, but I'll just notice that. I'll do the same dishes. I need to do the same chores, but I'm just not thinking about the fact that who's orchestrating these circumstances cares about my life, cares about me, and he's driven. He wants me to be a good husband. He wants me to be a good spouse. He wants me to be a good father, and because HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares, that's why I'm doing it. I wouldn't have the drive to do it if Hashem didn't care. Or at the very least, if I don't think about this, then I'll have to self-produce the entire drive. And if I have no value, if I have no faith in Hashem caring, then I need to make all the motivation. And then there's a lot of effort put into it. And that the experience is very hard work. But the more I notice HaKadosh Baruch Hu's caring, HaKadosh Baruch Hu putting value into it and cherishing what I'm doing, even if it's the most mundane thing, the more effortless it seems to me because it's as if Hashem is putting an effort into it. Hashem caring is like Hashem moving me, driving me, and then I'm carried away. So again, there is a correlation between doing something l'shem shamayim and it being effortless, as wondrous as that may seem. And that's what he explains. That this is why Shabbos is the internal. It's the internal point of l'shem shamayim. It's the same thing, and this is the true meaning of the tranquil rest of Shabbat. It doesn't mean you're not doing anything. It just means that on Shabbat is the day that you should be so sensitive to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will that everything happens on its own. And if you do this correctly, like the verse says about the 6 days of the week, is that the inspiration of Hashem's will, it seeps into the 6 days of the week. And if I feel how much Hashem cherishes my reality on Shabbos, so also the work of the 6 days that I need to do, I go to work every day, not on Shabbos, so that happens on its own. The verse says, Sheshit Yamim Te'aseh Melacha, which in Hebrew means that all of your work happens on its own. That you don't do it, it just happens to you. Again, you're carried away. So if the inspiration of Shabbos overflows into the week, so this sensation seeps into all the mundane days. But the day of the week to feel this the most is on Shabbos. But like we said before, a tzaddik is called Shabbos constantly because all of his life is accompanied by this experience of Hashem's presence and how much Hashem cherishes it. So the tranquility and the effortlessness follows him into the weekdays as well. So obviously, the more we can connect to this, the more we'll feel it in our weekdays as well. We can feel this sensation. Now, just to connect it to the parasha, how does the Ishbitzer read it? Where does he mention this? So he says that the service of the building of the Mishkan, first of all, was done again l'shem shamayim. The building of the tabernacle, so they're building Hashem's home, and Hashem is requesting, please build me this home. And that motivates and drives all of the Jewish people to do it. And more so, he says that in the end of everybody had his part, and when all the parts came together, like one person weaved a cloth, and one person built one of the artifacts. Everybody had his small point, and then everything came together, and nobody again. Every single person wasn't orchestrating the whole image, the whole framework. He was just given his small portion. But when he put it together with all the other portions, he saw that everything came together perfectly. So that sensation of seeing how all of the details of my life fit together to a grand total that I didn't plan on, I wasn't intending to, it expresses to me the involvement of Hashem. And the more I feel the involvement of Hashem, the more effortless my efforts seem, the less credit I take for it. And the more I feel that this just kind of happened on its own. I didn't do this big, huge thing. I didn't build this tabernacle. Maybe I did a very small thing, but when it adds up to an orchestra that I didn't orchestrate, so I get this sensation that I didn't do this. This wasn't me. It just happened on its own. He gives another example for this in the Torah. He tells a story in the Gemara, where it's mentioned that Talmai HaMelech, the king Talmai, he asked the sages, he took 70 sages, and he wanted them to translate the Torah. A very famous story, a lot of details here, but the basic story was that he took 70 sages, 70 great, wise Jewish sages, and he put them in secluded rooms, and they didn't know from one another. And he told them to translate the Torah. He wanted to test them to see that they don't cheat him, they don't change the text, because he couldn't read Hebrew, and he wanted them to translate it into ancient Greek. So they all did, and now there were 22 points that each one of these sages realized that translating it literally would be misunderstood by this king, by Talmai. So they changed. They changed the literal meaning. Like, for instance, instead of writing Bereshit bara, like that in the beginning Hashem created, they translated it that way. Like today it's translated Bereshit bara, in the beginning Hashem created, but really the Hebrew meaning it contains many meanings. It doesn't necessarily mean in the beginning. It could also be read that the beginning created Hashem. And in order for Talmai not to understand it that way, they changed it, and they translated it that in the beginning Hashem created, or Hashem created in the beginning, instead of putting the word beginning before Hashem. One of the examples, and there are 22 examples like that they changed. Now again, they weren't synchronized. They didn't even know one of the other. Everyone was just put in a secluded room and told to translate the Torah. And every one of them changed these 22 points, like miraculously. Now, initially, this is what he describes. So initially, every one of them came out of the room feeling that he did a brilliant feat, that he managed to translate the whole Torah brilliantly and change and like sidestep all of the landmines. But immediately when he came to Talmai and gave over his translation, he realized that there are another 70 people here giving over translations. So probably, first of all, he was startled. He was probably fearful for a moment. But then afterwards, Talmai reads all the translation and he sees that every one of the sages made the precise, he didn't know there were changes, but everybody realized that all the translations were identical. So inevitably they realized that each and every one of them made the same 22 changes. So the second that the sage, every one of these sages realizes that, what disintegrates, what mitigates, and that sensation of me achieving a feat, like this great feat of managing to sidestep all of each one felt that he did that. Like he took credit for that. I did this brilliant feat of sidestepping all the line mines, but the second I see that everybody did it, so it becomes obviously apparent that there wasn't me, that there was some sort of miracle going on. So what do I lose? I lose the sensation of effort. Like at first it felt like I had to put so much into to manage to translate it in such a manner. But when I see that everybody did it, so all the details come together to a feat that I couldn't have achieved. So I lose the feeling of effort. Suddenly it seems effortless what I've done. Again, so this is in retrospect, like the previous two classes we had. Another contemplation of how in retrospect it's easier to see God's presence. But what we're initially talking about is that the more I'm connected to Hashem's will, the more I can see this simultaneously while I'm acting in life. So those are two examples that he brings here in the Torah. Anyhow, he says that this is the connection between Shabbat and the building of the tabernacle. That the whole building of the tabernacle, again, the building of the tabernacle is an allegory for everything in life. Everything we do in life is building a home for Hashem. So everybody's shlichut, every day-to-day shlichut that anybody's doing is building a home so Hashem can reveal himself in this home, in our home, in each and every one of our home. And the way it needs to be done, the more we're doing it in Hashem's name, the more effortless it will be experienced to us. And that's a good thing, because again, we're being swept away by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we don't feel this way, if we feel that we need to put a lot of effort into everything, we're exhausted, then that's probably because we're not sensitive enough, we're not giving our minds, we're not contemplating enough on how much Hashem cherishes and cares about what we're doing. So we're not motivated, we're not driven. And when we're not driven, then we have to row the boat on our own, and then we feel exhausted. So that exhausted feeling is the first sign that we've lost sensitivity to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will. Because when HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears, like we said in that allegory from the Magid Midovna, his luggage, it's not heavy. Why is it not heavy? Because he's carrying it. It's his luggage. You're just putting your hand there and walking along. But if you feel that you're carrying the luggage, you're huffing and puffing, so that means that you're ignoring Hashem. But if you notice Hashem, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you notice me, that this is my luggage, then it wouldn't be heavy. And if it's heavy, then it's probably not my luggage. You don't think it's my luggage, it's your luggage. You're doing it because of your motivation, because of your personal interest. And if you do it because I was motivated, I'm motivated enough to motivate you. That's what Hashem's saying. So if you just notice that, and you contemplate and realize Hashem's presence, how much He cherishes your reality and what you're doing in life, then it will drive you, and you'll feel a sensation of effortlessness. So we should all measure how exhausted we are at the end of the day. Probably all of us are a little bit exhausted, and how much effort we're putting into life. And know that it's good that we're doing a lot, but the more we notice Hashem, the less effort we'll experience within our doing, and the more we'll be able to do, obviously. Bezrat Hashem. So we wish everybody a good week with a lot of success, a lot of outcome, and all effortlessly, because it should all be done with a sensitivity to how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu is cherishing our existence, that will drive us to do more and more and more with no exhaustion at the end. Bezrat Hashem. Shavua Tov to everybody.